No, it's your show. It's your show. You get to do whatever you want.
I can pick on every manager in that business.
Joel, it's all about you.
Oh, right. Man, this is great. I'm going to keep you guys on for hours.
And I said, well, you should play father and son. So he picks up his guitar and he starts to play it. And halfway through, he just stops and he's got tears running down his face. And he said to me, David, I've never sung this song as the father. I would say read the book. Yeah.
Right. Read the book. This is right
there.
Here.
There it is.
Right here. If you want the stories.
Hey, this is Party Like a Rockstar podcast, and I'm your host, Joel. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese on the market today. They're lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. If you like what you see, check out the next video. If you like this video, please subscribe and like by clicking the little round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or our other guests on the show, go to joelroadie.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle is Joel Roadie. If you haven't already read my book, Memoir of a Roadie, it's now available through Amazon and paperback Kindle or as an audiobook. I hope you enjoy the show. Charlie Wiener has been a professional comedian, songwriter, singer, and musician for 50 years. He's written 7 books, A Life in the Wings, 4 novels, a children's book, and a biography. He's performed throughout the US, Canada, Ireland, and the Netherlands. Last but not least, right? Netherlands. We like those guys. So. My second guest is David Spero. Early on, he spent years working as a DJ. He's worked for Columbia Pictures. He was the senior director of programming at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's been the manager for Joe Walsh, Harry Nilsson, Michael Stanley, Dickie Betts, Dave Mason, Billy Bob Thornton, Paul Rodgers, Kenny Loggins, and Yusuf Islam, a.k.a. Cat Stevens. I don't know if we need to do the a.k.a. anymore. I think most people know that, but to name just a few. His book, or I could say their book, if that's okay with you guys, is My Life in the Wings. It was released only last month, and you can pick it up on Amazon. I urge you guys to go look it up and check it out. So my first question is to you, David, and it is, has life been good to you so far?
Amazingly so. I've been very blessed. My career is nothing I ever thought it was going to be. I never had a plan or an idea of what I was going to do. And I just started living and things started happening. And next thing I knew, I'm working with Beatles and Eagles and Cat Stevens, and it's been a dream come true. Music is my passion, my love, my dream. Yeah. And here I am. I get to be in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, life's like a Big Bird song back there. You hear that?
Yeah.
It's good.
And for years, everybody's been telling me to write a book. And
yeah,
Paul Rodgers was finally the last one. He goes, you know what? Every time we get together, we sit and you tell me stories. And I'm like, I'd rather read these. People want to hear these stories. And I had been reading Charlie's books that he has written over the years. Whenever I go to airports, I always like to buy local writers and see what they're like, what they're writing about. So I'd read all of his books, and not knowing that he had this other life as Kim Zonneville as a writer, as I knew him as Charlie Wiener. And I'm telling him one day, that I've been reading this guy's books, and he thought it was a joke. He thought I was kidding with him. And he says, that's me, right? I said, what are you talking about? And he shows me his driver's license, which has his real name on it. And I was just blown away. I'm like, man, I love your books, And he said, well, I wanted to write yours. So we did.
Oh, well, I appreciate that you think he's so literate.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is good on all fronts.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
I mean, I didn't even think he was funny,
Yeah. How did you actually get in touch with one another then? What was the catalyst to reach out?
We've known each other since the 70s. I used to, when I was managing Michael Stanley Band, when they first started, I really enjoyed Charlie's music. I played it on WMMS and WNCR. And I got to know him, and he opened up probably 100 shows for Michael Stanley Band in the 70s.
Oh.
And we've never not been in touch with each other.
Cool. You're old buds, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
So one of my old buds growing up is Harry Nilsson's son. So I mentioned
Which one?
Bo. Bo's is a buddy of mine. So
Sure.
I mentioned I was talking to you today, and he said that he knew your name.
Right.
And
they were all pretty young when I was working. I worked with Harry the 3 years before he died.
Yeah. Do you got any good Harry stories? That his?
Oh man, Harry. Yeah, I can tell you one that wasn't in the book, or maybe it's in the book. I was Harry and I were meeting out in LA for a meeting, and it was at some restaurant bar, and Eric Carmen was living out in LA at the same time. And I'd called Eric and said, hey, we should get together for dinner and all this. So he comes over to the bar like a half hour early. And he comes over and he like sits down next to me and Harry. And when Harry's in business mode, he's in business mode. No screwing around, And Eric's like, hey, man, nice to meet you. And Harry's like, excuse me, we're in a meeting here. Why don't, we're not here, this is not like a meet and greet, we're in a meeting. And Eric says, well, I just want to say hi, I'm meeting David later on. I don't care what you're doing later on. He goes, well, and also, I sang on one of your records. I'm Eric Carmen. He goes, I know who you are. Why don't you just go sit all by yourself until David and I finish with our meeting? I was kind of embarrassed, for Eric, but at the same time, it was kind of funny,
Yeah.
But
and what were you guys are in the middle talking about? Like, we're gonna order noodles or should we have cocktails?
yeah, right. No,
really important.
Well, with Harry, first of all, he ordered dessert, and then he would read the menu, and that's why he was at like 300 pounds when he died. He was not in good shape. We had gone to he had had a minor heart attack, and I went with him to his follow-up visit. And with the doctor, and the doctor said, Harry, listen, here's the situation. You've got to stop smoking. You've got to stop doing all these drugs. You've got to stop drinking. Or I'm telling you, you've got like 3 months to 3 years to live. Your body just can't take it. And we went back to his house, and his wife said, what'd the doctor say? And Harry said, I got 3 months to live. And I said, that's not what he said, Harry. He said, that's exactly what he said, because I'm not going to stop living so that I don't die. And it was less than 3 months later, I got the call the day before the big earthquake out in LA that Harry had passed away in his sleep.
It's a good way to go, but not at that age, It's
way too young.
Yeah, way too young. Yeah, we were listening because I knew I was talking to you guys. So my girlfriend and I were listening to some of his music last night, and it's just so good. What a voice. And we all know, but still it doesn't matter. You listen to it time and you're just, wow.
He wrote an autobiography which has never come out, and I have the only copy of it.
Oh.
And I've got a letter from him that says, when you think the time is right, do whatever you need to get this out there.
Oh, I guess you'll have to see when you think the time is right.
Yeah, I know his family isn't very excited about it, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I read it once a year just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Charlie, I don't want to leave you out here.
It's okay.
I went down this rabbit hole because I'm selfish.
I'm done. I can go now.
Yeah, you're done.
Okay.
I've been listening to David for a year and a half. I can listen to him forever. It's just that I'm always enthralled by the stories.
I got another big manager coming up in an hour.
Okay.
We don't need you. So we were talking a little bit beforehand. We talked about the Eagles for 2 seconds, really, but we talked about one of my favorite people who I worked for a little time was Charlie Hernandez. And so you were telling me the story, which I was like, stop. But what happened exactly? And what year was this and whatnot? And
well, first you were going to ask Charlie a question. So
what do we got?
But I can butt in now.
Okay.
That's okay.
No,
I mean, hey, it's all about me. You know what I mean?
Is.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's all about me.
Always.
Hold on. There's a telemarketer.
Yeah.
It's my clock. I can't turn
Oh,
it
wait
off.
a minute.
The story I was telling you is Michael Stanley Band was the opening band for the Eagles on the One of These Nights tour.
Okay.
And we were down in Atlanta, and there were all kind of technical problems at the show. So the promoter said, look, we're going to have to start late, but they had a hard, out time because of being a union show and all that. And he said to me, listen, your band's not going to be able to play tonight. And I said, okay, I mean, I totally understood the situation. It sucked, but I understood it. So a little later on, Charlie Hernandez, who was the tour manager for the Eagles, and he said to me, hey, I'm going to go collect our money. Want to come with me? So I said, sure. So we go in there.
Was it because
the
Charlie
guy
was
says,
afraid?
huh?
Was it because he needed you as backup? He was
No. It's what
Oh.
we did. We would go collect
He was
our
kind
money
of a little
together.
fella.
Yeah. So I go in there and I want my $1,000, and the guy says to me, well, your band didn't play. And I said, well, the contract is rain or shine, doesn't matter. We get paid whether we play or not. Guy said, no, I'm not paying you. So Charlie opens his briefcase up and he removes something from it and sets it on the table there. And he says to the guy, look, when you're done with David, we can settle the Eagles show. And the guy looks and sees a gun sitting there.
Oh, it was a guy. I was going to say, was it the cue cards from the Upbeat Show that you've been
No.
all these years?
No, he within like a second, the guy hands me, $10, $100 bills and sends me on my way. And afterwards, I said to Charlie, hey man, thanks. We were pretty new doing what we were doing, And he goes, no problem. It's always good to carry an unloaded gun.
Great. That's a good one. Not to change it up a bit, but I thought a fun one, if you can remember. So talking about the Upbeat Show, I think you started working on your father's show. It's called the Upbeat Show. When you were 14, I was reading.
13 years old. Started on my bar mitzvah.
Hey. That's my Jewish thing. Hey.
Yeah. Oi. Who knew?
Hey. What was the funniest or the oddest cue card you remember picking up? Was there any ones that stood out of like, I want the guy to say?
Well, I had Don Webster used to say, let's try and be relevant on the show. If you can come up with some questions, that relate to what's going on right then, it would be good. And he was doing an interview with Joe Tex, and I held up a card that said, what did you think of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper record, and did it affect you musically at all? And Don looks at the card and he says to Joe Tex, so what do you think about that Dr. Pepper record? Did it affect your music at all? And Joe looks at me and says, what are you talking about? And they're like, cut, take two. I go over to Don. I said, Sgt. Pepper, it's the new Beatles album that just came out. Oh, I thought it said doctor. So, I mean, and then, I would screw around with him at times too. I would put on there like, your zippers down and, just things. If things were getting too tense on the set, I would always find a way to lighten it up.
Yeah, a bit of good. All right, Charlie, your turn. So my first question is for you. Working as a stand-up comedian, I think it's really neat in that it's intimidating for me. I don't know. I like to think I can be funny if I try, but to get up there and do a routine is like super intimidating. So after all these years, I assume it's not an issue for you, but why did you decide to get into becoming a stand-up comedian? And what were the first times on stage like? Was it as hard as you thought it would be, or?
No, because I started doing comedy back in the early 70s. And we were a music act, but we like to have a little fun. And so it's like the first time I ever really tried comedy on stage was the guy in the band that was the guitar player broke like 3 strings and he needed 10 minutes to put it together. And I just started just kind of riffing on stage and people started laughing. And I'm like, oh, this is so much better. So I just started working that into the act more and more and more, and started doing less serious music and more fun music and more stand-up.
He just didn't want to pay a band.
What?
He just didn't want to have to pay other musicians. That
In this one, it was all about me.
That makes sense.
You know how it is, Joel. It's your show. It's all about you.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
I don't know anymore. I'm like every day it's like, you want to come on? You want to come on? It was my whole life. Want to come on? Want to come on?
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. More is Cat Stevens. So do you still work with him or?
Well, you know, we hadn't done stuff for a bunch of years, and just recently a couple of things are coming up that we're working on together that hopefully towards the beginning of next year will, you know, reach fruition. And he's an amazing guy. He is one of my dear friends since the 70s.
Yeah.
It was such an honor to work with him and co-produce a record with him at one point. And through him, I got to work
in co-produce.
Roadsinger.
Okay.
That was the second album since he came back into the business. And that's one has Paul McCartney on it, and Dolly Parton and Gunnar Nelson and Michelle Branch. And he just turned the project over to me. He said, find me musicians, find me singers, find me a producer, find me studio. And we spent about 3 months going through songs, and he had such a plethora of material because he hadn't done much recording at that point.
Does he still have that English accent, or get rid of it?
Oh no! I mean, he lives in he's from London. You know, you're not going to doesn't go away.
Yeah,
I pretended I had one, but you know. So you've forgotten the great idea. Why don't we bring in Paul McCartney? You know, maybe he can sing a song or two with you.
And he said, "Who? I don't know what's."
Yeah.
So
we did. Yeah.
Why does he want to be on my album?
Well, that was kind of what he said. We were kind of surprised when I called Paul's office and said that we had a place we thought was perfect for him. And Paul said to me, I get to sing with fucking Cat Stevens. Are you kidding me? Oh, and I'm like, yeah. And like 4 days later, we were together in the studio.
Neat. You know,
Joel, here's a really important thing that's kind of coming out of this that I want you to understand about this book and about this man.
Please.
Is the fact that like he didn't work with Yusuf for a long time. He managed him, they broke up, and then now here is years later, Yusuf comes back to David and asks him to help with this new project, because the thing you have to understand is that David always, the most important thing in David's life is to remain friends with these people. And that there's never ill feelings, there's never anything. If it's something, if a management thing doesn't work out, or if a deal doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, it's all business. The friendship is the most important thing. So all of these people that we talk about in the book that he may not manage at that moment, but there's always a chance that they'll come back into his life because they all trust him, because he's that person that you know, there's always a good feeling. And if there's something that they can work in with, and David is always open to it, because the main thing is the friendship. The main thing is the love of the game. And that's what it really comes down to.
So you're like Elijah. You have the open door.
Yeah, right. Or Forrest Gump, one of the two. I'm not sure. This just happened with Billy Bob Thornton. I'd worked with Billy back in the mid 2000s. And
can you do a Billy Bob Thornton impression? You seem to do the other one good.
Well, there's a million. It depends which character it is.
Oh, Sling Blade. Give us a Sling Blade. I don't know. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is. And just 2 days ago, he had called me last week, and we were going to try to get together. So I went down to Atlanta and spent the day with him. And, the first thing, of course, he wanted was a copy of the book to see if he was in it, which he is. And we were up until like 2:30 in the morning, and we're back trying to find some projects to do together now.
Oh, neat. Yeah. Do you know Seth Shomes?
No.
I think he was working with Billy Bob's band for a few minutes. That's why
Yeah, he's had a lot of people come and go there. He's got amazing musicians. Oh my God.
Yeah, neat. So this is something I can edit out if it's a silly question, but the religious aspect with Cat Stevens and you being Jewish, never an issue, or?
Well, it's very interesting. It was a huge issue, in the most positive of ways. And we had hours long conversations about religion and all of this. And you know, his whole musical journey has been to find out who he is and where he belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he had been, his mother was Jewish from Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
His father, Greek Orthodox from Cyprus. They went to Roman Catholic schools because they were across the street. And he never really knew, you know, what that was all about. So he had spent time living in Israel, trying to find himself, becoming a Buddhist and trying to find himself, going from religion to religion until he finally, his brother gave him a copy of the Quran. And the first words in the Quran is, love is peace, peace is love. And he said, this is what I've been looking for. And this was back in the 70s. It's, you know, Muhammad Ali was a Muslim and Kareem was a Muslim. It wasn't a negative connotation at that point. But in the 2000s, when we were together and we had long talks about it, and I told him, I said, you know, it's religion's such a weird thing. And he goes, it's not about religion. He said, you have to understand, religion is what your parents give you. Faith is what's in your heart. And at some point, you find a place where something touches your faith and connects. It changed my world. I always felt guilty that I wasn't a good Jew, but I've always had faith.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I work with Richie Furay. You know, Richie is a minister and a born again minister. And we had long talks about it. He encouraged me to read the Bible, which kind of even confused me more because it was so, you know, one page says, thou shalt not kill. The next page says an eye for an eye. And it's like, well, what is this? And his whole thing was totally different. His was much more intense, actually, is, you know, if I didn't have Jesus in my heart, then I wasn't going to heaven. And I pressed him on that. And it's like, how can that be? How could like 80% or 90% of human beings that aren't, you know, don't have Jesus in their heart, none of them are going to heaven? He said, no. And I mean, I can't connect with that.
Yeah.
I connected much more with Yusuf and his views on religion, although Richie's one of the happiest people I know. And if that's what makes him happy, then that's great.
Yeah.
Same with Yusuf. That's what makes him happy.
Yeah.
No, religion's a great subject to talk about because it's a part of who these people are.
Yeah. Well, you have to have something, I think, to give you that, I'm going to say oomph for better word, to like write and be creative and come up with these little rhymes, basically, you know, and interlace them to make something out of it. It's
yeah. I mean, when you listen to the words to, you know, father and son, you know, here's the story. This is what he lived. This was, you know, this is the conversations they had. And when I first started working with him, it was the first, we were doing a radio promo gig at, up in New York. And he says, well, I guess I'm going to have to play a couple of the old songs. I only really know the new ones. I should practice. And I said, well, you should play Father and Son. So he picks up his guitar and he starts to play it. And halfway through, he just stops and he's got tears running down his face. And he said to me, David, I've never sung this song as the father.
Oh.
And it took a whole new meaning for him. So, I mean, you know, these people, they live their songs.
Yeah.
You know, it's an important thing for them.
Did you have any meetings with anybody that you did not end up managing and you really wish it had worked out?
I've had meetings with people that it didn't work out. I had met with Trent Reznor early on in Nine Inch Nails, and I didn't understand the music. And it wasn't a melody with a lyric that touched me, you know. To me, it was just like
a very, so he was a very aggressive in making his career happen. He worked really hard. And that diligence.
No doubt about it. And I told him, I said, look, if I manage you, it's not going to happen. Because if I can't wear the T-shirt, you know, if I don't believe in it, I don't know how to work it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm glad he went on and became a huge, huge success.
Yeah. He worked his butt off to get to where he is. He's
man, I have so much respect for him.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Marilyn, not so much.
He comes up quite often. He comes up a lot. The roadies don't all love Marilyn Manson. So
yeah.
There's quite a bit of stuff. I said on one of these, I'm like, oh, I actually like his music. And the guy's like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Crap. You know what it was? Is I started listening to it again the next day, and I was sort of like, yeah, I don't like it as much as I used to. I don't know. He did that one Matrix song.
Yeah, it's like when I stopped getting high, I would put on a Grateful Dead album and go, what the hell was I listening to?
Darn hippies.
It's an old joke. It's not true. But
Joe Walsh, Charlie, you working on this book with him and stuff. There must have been some of these guys that was super fun for you to ask the questions like I'm asking and get into the business of it all. So which characters, if not Joe Walsh, I'm sure, but were you just sitting on the edge of your seat like, tell me more?
Really, all of them. I mean, if the best was Richie Furay called my house, and we talked for about a half an hour. And Jesse Colin Young, David told me when I talked to Jesse Colin Young, he goes, it'll probably be 10 minutes because he doesn't really like to talk. But we talked for almost a half an hour. He was delightful. I mean, the best part of all of this was, as someone that's performed my whole life, is that when you run into somebody that you really like, that you really like their music, really like them, for them to be who you wanted them to be, was more important than anything else. And like Jesse Colin Young, I talked to Yusuf's brother for an hour. I talked to, all these different people, and they were all, and I think it comes back to David. David never takes on somebody. David doesn't take on somebody that's an asshole. David has to like them. He has to respect their music.
I was looking for a manager. Bad joke.
He said, and so everybody that I talked to was just, they were all delightful, and I could have talked to them for hours. It was just fantastic. I mean, that's the beauty of this, and the respect and admiration that they have for David and what he did for them, I think really comes through in the book. As somebody said, well, it's just, it's kind of a lot of praise for David. I go, well, it's his book, of course there's praise for David. I didn't make any of it up. I wrote what people told me and what David told me, that this is what I'm writing and just trying to smooth things out and do stuff. Because it's just, when you work with somebody like that, it's magic. I mean, it really, there's no other word for it. It's magic. The last time I read the book, just to finally actually read it, I was halfway through it, and I'm going, this guy is great. This guy is so cool. And I go, oh, wait a minute, he's a friend of mine, and I wrote this book. So it was you forget how cool. There's so many. I said, my wife got tired of me finishing like a chapter and going, that's my favorite chapter. She's like, every chapter before that was your favorite chapter.
It's a good thing.
Well, because they all are. And the stories are just so wonderful. They're fun. It's not a tell-all. It's not a, we're getting paybacks or an expose. It's a lovely book about a guy that loves his job and loved the people that he worked with. That's what it is.
Let's see. So I'll ask you my fun question. So I ask every guest this. So I was at my buddy's house. My friends have little kids. My friend's daughter was in 5th grade. I think she's in 6th grade now, but she was in 5th grade, and she came out with a couple of her little girlfriends, and she said, you need to ask every guest when they first felt famous. So bear in mind, the question's coming from a little kid. If you don't want to choose fame as the answer, and some people don't like the word fame, when was there a time in your life that there was a moment where there was something that happened to change your career or make you feel good about yourself, or just a little kernel within the years that each of you have? Which moment would you guys choose?
Well, I would use the word relevant, I guess, more than famous, because I'm certainly not famous, and never was and never will be, but relevant, I think, is probably the word. And it was when I left WMMS and I was managing Michael Stanley, and every place we'd go around the country, somebody would say something about MMS to me. And at the time I was doing it, it was just I mean, it was a cool thing to do. I got free records and free T-shirts and girls coming down to the radio station and all that stuff. But I didn't realize that I had touched so many people. And I was at Jackson Browne's 50th birthday party out at his house, and my wife and I walk in, and he sees us, and he says, "Hey, well, come over here. You guys must know each other." And he's standing with this guy and a lady, and I recognize the lady because she was an ABC News person, but I didn't recognize the guy. And he said, "Well, you guys must know each other." And we're looking at each other, I have no idea. And he says, "Well, this is David Spero. This is Marc Cohn." We went to the same high school many, many years apart. And Mark says, "Oh my God." And he turns to his wife and says, "This is the guy I've been telling you about. He formed my entire musical knowledge. From listening to his show, he turned me on to Joni Mitchell and Cat Stevens and, you know, all the old folkies that I used to play." And at that time, I was like, wow, you know, I didn't realize, you don't realize you touch people, or that you can make a difference in their lives. And to hear that from a guy like Marc Cohn, who I think it was the year he won his Grammy. Yeah. That was pretty heady stuff for me.
Was he appreciative you didn't play the Grateful Dead?
Well, actually, I did play the Grateful Dead, but I only played Working Man's Dead and Touch of Grey, I think, were the only songs. I never got into their jams, but I thought their acoustic music was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And then he did a whole record of covers, and he sent it to me, and there was a note on it that said, "I heard every one of these songs on your show."
Oh, wow.
That's a good question. I love that question. Charlie, have you ever been relevant?
No.
But you've been famous.
No. I think probably the only time. I've never been famous either, but I did. I was thinking of this. It's like when I did Evening at the Improv, and James Earl Jones was the host, and they thought that I was Mark Wiener. Found out I wasn't Mark Wiener, I was Charlie Wiener, and canceled me. And then my manager sent out a thing and said, you know, Charlie's been touring the country for so many years, whatever else. 7 minutes of Charlie Wiener's not going to take your show off the air. And so they said, okay, send him out. And I went out there, and they just treated me like a piece of shit the whole day because they kept making sure that I knew that the only person that had ever been on the program that Bud hadn't actually seen in person had never made it on the air because he sucked. And if I sucked, that was the end of it, and, you know, whatever. And before I walked on stage, Bud Friedman said to me, he goes, "Here's what's going to happen is that while you're on, James Earl Jones and I'll be sitting in this spot. When you finish your set, you look up. If James Earl Jones is walking up to the stage, you wait there, he'll come up and shake your hand. If he's still sitting there, get off my fucking stage, you suck." Okay, to make somebody feel good. I went up and did my show, and I don't really give a shit because I'm not big at it, whatever. And I went up and did my show. I finished my little 7-minute set, and I looked up, and James Earl Jones is not there. He's not walking up to the stage. He's running up to the stage. And he came up, and he gave me a big, huge bear hug. And he looked at the crowd. He kept going, "Charlie Wiener, ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Wiener." And I was like, there you go. And then Bud.
Did he give you an Arby's? Did you get an Arby's sandwich from him at least?
Of course I got an Arby's sandwich from him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that says you've made it into business.
Yeah, well, they have the meat.
And you had the extra meat.
Was the crappy manager Roger Paul? Was the crappy comedy manager Roger Paul?
No, you know, they never told me who the guy was that sucked. So, like, whatever, you know.
Do you know Roger? No?
Yeah, I know Roger.
I do. Yeah.
I'm getting my beef in that.
Get a few punches in it.
Yeah.
No,
tell him I didn't say hi.
It's your show. You get to do whatever you want.
I can pick on every manager in that business.
You know, Joel, it's all about you.
Oh, right. Man, this is great. I'm going to keep you guys on for hours.
Show
Joel,
the book, Charlie. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Where is the book? I don't even have the book with me.
Oh, we should have picked it up. That would have been a good move. I should.
You don't have a book there, Charlie?
Like,
go get a book.
I was getting everything ready. You know, hurry! I can get it in about 2 seconds.
Go get a book. We'll talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah, we'll figure out something. So with with Joel Walsh, you talk about with him gluing everything to the roof of the hotel room, which is a very famous story. I think we've all heard it before, but so you were there both before and after, and were you just looking at him like,
oh yeah, I was there during it. I was the one that it was during the Ringo tour. We were in, I can't remember if it was Kansas City or St. Louis. And we had a day off, which is always a bad news thing on a tour, followed by a rain delay. I mean, a rain out, because we were doing an outdoor show. So now we have 2 days on the row off and everybody's bored to tears. Joe calls me up. He goes, hey man, find out where the closest mall is. I need to get a glue gun. And I figured he was doing some work on his guitars, which he was always working on, So we went up. There was a Radio Shack in the mall that the hotel was connected to. He bought that and he goes, okay, well, leave me alone. I'll call you. I got work to do. I'll call you when I'm done. So I don't know, 8-9 hours later, I get a call. He says, call everybody in the band. And the band was like Todd Rundgren, Zach Starkey, Nils Lofgren, Timothy B. Schmidt, Burton Cummings. I can't remember who else was in that Ringo band. He
all
says,
the guys
call
that
everybody.
were too busy to. Oh, Paul had the real good guys, and Ringo had all the leftovers. Clearly,
yeah. Yeah. But he said, call everybody but the boss and tell him to meet in the room in 5 minutes. So I get everybody together, and I have no idea what's going on. And the door opens. I knock on the door, and Joe is, come in, please. And everybody walks into the suite, and the whole living room, with the exception of the couch, was glued to the ceiling. The ashtray was glued to the table. The cigarette was glued to the ashtray. The table was glued to the ceiling. The lamp was glued to the table. Everything that was in the room, magazines glued to the table, glued to the ceiling.
So did he have glue like all over him?
Oh no, it was, he was very clean with it.
Oh,
good. Very clean with it. Yeah. And
cocaine baggies all over
the whole thing. What's that?
Cocaine baggies all over, like literally, or
no, we didn't have that. These were the heavy drinking days. And they walked in, and everybody was just like, this was the coolest thing. We didn't have cell phones, unfortunately, to take a picture. I didn't know what I was walking to do. I would have brought up camera. Well, when the doors opened, one of the bellboys walked by the room and saw what was going on and went down and told the front desk.
Narc.
They came up, police and all this stuff. And I'm
clearly
like,
not a music lover.
Yeah. I like, here's my American Express card. Just put it on the bill, and I have that bill somewhere. I think it was for like $52,000.
Wow.
The best part of that whole story, it's in this book. Right there. It's in this. I can't get it. It's still fuzzy, but it's in that book.
Did you submit the receipt for the glue as a tax write-off?
He probably did that. That would have been his bill. The hotel bill was mine, but the glue bill was his. And I mean, the first time I was ever out on the road with Joe, we were doing a private gig, fundraiser, actually not a private gig, but a fundraiser in Wichita, Kansas, where Joe grew up. Mm-hmm. They had some really bad flooding and stuff. So he got a band together, Skunk Baxter on guitar, John Entwistle was playing bass, Joe Vitale was playing drums, and Walsh. And we check into this hotel at the airport, and literally I had time to set my stuff down and run over to the gig for sound check. And I come back, and it's after the show, and it's dark out and everything. And I go into my room, and I turn on the light switch, and none of the light switch doesn't work. So I'm trying to feel my way around. It's pitch black in there. And I sit on the bed, which is filled with ice cubes. I go into the bathroom hoping that light works. The bathroom was full of balloons from ceiling to floor. I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't tell what it was. So I go to call the front desk, and the receiver is glued to the phone. And I try to open my door, and I can't open my door. Joe had if you put a nickel in there, it keeps it, you can't open the door from the inside. So I'm freaking out. And I have no idea what's going on. I can't see anything. I can't reach anybody. And I'm like, all of a sudden there's a knock on the door and it's Joe. He goes, come on, man, we're going down to the bar. I said, I can't get out of my room. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, I can't get out of my room. And he's just laughing his ass off. And finally he opens the door and he hands me another key and he goes, here, your real room is next door. But welcome to the road. And
welcome to the club.
Never turn your back on me.
I don't know if you were around at this time, but I read online recently that he sold Jimmy Page his 1959 Les Paul back in the day.
But to him, they traded guitars.
They traded.
Yeah, that was after the Music Carnival gig here.
Okay.
Yeah, Moon.
Did he ever want it back or no? It was a happy trade. Everybody was good.
Yeah. Oh, he's got, him and Clapton have traded guitar. I mean, it's a common thing in the business. People are trading guitars.
Okay. Yeah. See, I thought he had sold it. And then you always wonder, was he down on his times and wanted it back? And
no.
Joe Perry and Slash. That was it. Slash bought Joe Perry's guitar and Joe Perry wanted it back and he wouldn't give it back. He actually played it in the November Rain video.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up giving it to Joe Perry as a birthday present all the years later. So
nice.
Joe gave me the guitar he played Funk 49 on.
Oh, neat.
For my 21st birthday. I've had that guitar for 50 years.
So neat. Okay, so my favorite question. The other one was the little girls. This one. What are some of the funnier gigs that you guys have had? The places you've walked into through the years and you've been like, I have no idea how we're going to play this. You got any ones that come to mind?
Well, with Michael Stanley Band, that was a nightly occurrence when we were doing okay, well, the keyboards are going to have to be on the floor, I mean, you make do. It's part of the world that we live in, is that nothing is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it was just, I remember we played a gig in Chicago up in Schaumburg, Illinois. It was a club called Beginnings. It was owned by the guys in Chicago. And we went up there and man, maybe there were 10 people in the gig. It was in the winter, snowing like crazy. And 10 people showed up for the show. And the guys went out there and dicked around on stage and, just kind of goofed around and got through it. And they came back to the dressing room. I went in there and I said, listen, you guys, I quit if this ever happens again. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, if you don't go out there and play the same show you would play in front of 10,000 people to 10 people, then you're not in this for the right reasons, Yeah. And it was probably the most important statement I had ever made to them. And I was with Michael most of the last week of his life. Spent a lot of time with him. And it was one of those things that he brought up. He said, I got to tell you something. Your little speech in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is the only reason I remember it so well, because we just talked about it a year ago. He said, that was probably your greatest moment as a manager.
That's cool.
Charlie, you've played every shithole in the world.
Oh my God. Yeah. I've played on beer cases. And I love that story because this is something that I have preached over and over my entire career to people.
Okay, podcast over. We're out of time.
Joel, he thinks it's about him.
Yeah, this guy.
I mean, it's either about me or you.
I don't even know your real name.
Yeah.
It's not, I even know who my real name is anymore.
Man.
He was signing books the other day and he says to me, I've got to concentrate because I keep wanting to write Charlie Wiener.
Right. It's like
I'm thinking, who would ever want to write Charlie Wiener? Yeah.
I sent him the other day. I found on IMDb this guy had written all these films, and I was like, "Is this you?" And he goes, "Nope." I'm like, "Oh." That guy had class and merit. What was
right?
Did you look at the names of the movie? It was like Big Booby Girls.
This guy was successful. This is me.
Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, sorry, you were saying something profound, and we just couldn't help ourselves.
Of course not. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, I said, it's if you walk on stage and there's 3 or 4 people in the audience, or whatever, you get a night like that. I said, in my mind, I always say, this may be their only night out. Maybe they got a babysitter. Maybe they went out to dinner. Maybe they had another. They deserve the same show you give anybody. And if you aren't willing to do that, get off my fucking stage. What's the
weirdest gig you've had to perform at, Charlie? Like backyard oddity stuff? I don't know.
Probably the nudist camps that I've done.
How many nudist camps have you performed at?
Actually, I've performed at I think 5 now. Wow. And the first one was just the weirdest because, you walk in and you think it's going to be, the Swedish bikini team. And
they were in 1922.
It's an Elks Lodge, only they're naked. So you walk into, it's all these middle-aged people and they're naked and you're like, okay, I'm gonna picture you people in your underwear, because that would cover up a lot of the shit that I'm seeing right now.
Right. Richard Pryor started too,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of stand-up in nudist colonies.
Yeah. My wife and I went to a clothing optional beach in down on one of the islands in the Caribbean. And
it's tough to be king.
Well, we went there and I'm like thinking, oh man, I'm going to pretend to take pictures of her while I'm taking pictures of these incredibly hot naked babes.
Charlie knows that.
I didn't take one picture because it was like, I don't want to see these people.
What has been seen cannot be unseen is the problem.
I didn't want to see me, so I wore a suit. But
they all appreciated it, I'm sure.
They did.
They did. There was a lot. Well, gentlemen, I really do appreciate your time. If you have any stories that you feel we missed out on, and please tell them. I can tell you. I
would say read the book. Yeah.
Right. Read the book. This is
there it is.
Right here. If you want the stories, this is 464 pages. And it's really a fun read. Everybody
pictures
so far is
there's about 100 pictures.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm only in 96 of them.
Right. Because we wanted to take the focus off David a little bit. Then 96, the other 5 are blank.
Well, Charlie told me that the gun was loaded, by the way, so I should tell you that.
Okay.
I'm gonna lie all these years.
My favorite picture, there's a picture of me and Jimi Hendrix in the book.
Yes.
Wow.
And then there's pictures that I took of Jimi Hendrix from about 3 feet away. While talking to him, he was showing me some of his guitars and stuff like that.
Wow.
Pretty cool stuff.
You were working with who at the time, or how did that come about?
It was on Upbeat. It was during the Upbeat days.
Oh, neat. That's a cool one. Yeah. Well, would you say then that you're proud of the book and your accomplishments thus far? You feel like you've done good?
I said to my wife today, I said, did you ever think this book was going to happen? And she said, not until Charlie came around, because we've had a couple false starts with it. And at one point, Cameron Crowe was going to help me with the book, but he got crazy busy. Mm-hmm. And so when Charlie came around, she said that's when she knew it was going to be real. And he did an amazing job of capturing my voice, Yeah. And when you read the book, there's both of us are in the book. Charlie sets up the stories and I tell the stories. And it really, I couldn't be happier, to tell you the truth. It was beyond my wildest dreams.
That's good. You might just become famous after all, Charlie.
Better him than me.
No, David's going to become famous. I'm going to be the guy. I will be the man behind the curtains.
Well, I'll tell you a great non-famous story.
Please.
As we leave.
Yeah.
I was with Walsh. We were in New York, and Ringo was doing a show at the Bottom Line.
These are all famous people. We're off to a bad start.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It was a precursor to him doing one of the VH1 shows, with the live band plays. It wasn't Unplugged. I can't remember what it was. Anyhow, so we're doing the sound check and everything. And afterwards, Ringo's lawyer, Bruce Grickel, he had a apartment diagonal from the bottom line. So we had the police that were going to clear the way so we could just walk across the street after the sound check. We went out there. There had to be 500-600 people, all screaming and yelling. And the cops are making a circle around the whole band to take them, across the street. Joe says to me, he says, look, nobody cares about us. We walk all the way around the perimeter. Nobody pays a bit of attention. We get to the lobby of the apartment building about 20 minutes before they do. They're all soaking wet, from sweat. And they're like, how'd you guys get here? Well, we just walked around the people.
Again, it's good to be king.
It is.
It's good.
Or know the king, actually.
Or know the king. Everybody loves Ringo. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe by clicking the round button on the bottom right. To learn more about me or the guests on the show, go to joelroadie.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. The handle's Joel Roadie. And don't forget, when you party like a rock star, don't be a dick.